we welcome in our 1320 Kings insider and creator of the Kings Beat, your favorite in mine, James Ham. You surviving out there, Hammer?
So hot. Yeah, man, it's hot. It's just muggy and I mean, the smoke rolled in early this morning, but it seems to be clearing up here.
Oh,
that was bad. So outside, it was not only was it super hot, but it was like yellow and gross. Yeah, so the air quality is not great up here. I think the air quality was at like 275 when we woke up this morning. So that's not good. But yeah. AC's cranking. Everything's going all right.
Me and Damien were talking about this off air yesterday. We were born and raised in this area. Obviously, we both left for a little bit of time or whatever. But we were just saying, we ain't never seen nothing like this here in Sacramento. Like 4 straight days of like 113, 150. I ain't never seen no heat like this out here. I ain't seen this before out here.
Yeah, I think it's making believers out of a lot of people that there is an issue with the climate. I don't know, like is it Pakistan that's flooding? Like a third of it's underwater, and then you go to the Colorado River and it's completely dried up, and like we're in a bad spot. Yeah, things are changing, and yeah, I'm glad we're not in the Bay Area, because the Bay Area gets hot. When it's hot like this, a lot of people down there don't even have AC. Yeah, I like my, we followed the rules yesterday. We cranked up the AC to 75 and then dropped it to 80, like at 4 o'clock is what they told us to do. And that seemed to be okay. Yeah.
Yeah, my mom was one of those people. She's in Redwood City. Thankfully, she went to stay with my sister in San Carlos yesterday. Is that heat was just absolutely ridiculous in the Bay Area. And the heat's going to be ridiculous in 3 weeks for the Sacramento Kings.
Segue.
Wow, that was dope.
Segue.
Thank you so much. Are you enjoying it? Just dawned on me. Are you enjoying your last few weeks? Because your life changes a little bit in about 2.5 weeks.
Yeah, it's kind of like the mad scramble to get some of the big projects out of the way, which is something I haven't been able to do this summer just because of health issues and stuff. So now it's like the mad dash to try to get stuff done. It's cool though, fantasy football draft. That's when you know that it's almost here, and you're gearing up, and it feels like the season's just around the corner. And now we got to go get booster shots, and so we can be around the players. And yeah, it's cranking up. It's almost here.
Do you know for sure the locker room's opening back up?
I've heard rumor that yes, but also that it will be. I mean, I could be wrong. They could change their mind on this, but that there's going to be a pretty strict tier system, and certain people will be allowed in certain spots and other people will not be allowed in certain spots. But all of it, if you're going to be around players, you're going to have to be fully vaccinated with everything. Yeah.
Yeah. When you, what are the you kind of laid it out a little bit, but what are the final weeks for you? Like, are you like not watching any basketball because that's going to consume your life, or are you watching WNBA? Are you watching Eurobasket? Are you paying attention to this stuff? Or are you just saying, I need 2 more weeks where I don't even see a basketball because it's about to get crazy for the next 7 months?
Yeah, I tend to be someone who gets away from it a little bit. I do need to decompress near when it's almost game time. I don't have that when you've seen as many games in person live as I have, it's not like you're hankering for the next one. So yeah, I like to get a little distance. I do love football, and me and my son will watch like 9 hours straight every Sunday. We'll get up early, and then we'll even throw in like EPL before that, the Premier League, and we'll watch soccer. And yeah, I'm excited about sort of getting the flow back. When we get to media day, that's always like first day of school, going and hanging out with everybody, seeing everybody, and then it's right into the grind. Training camp starts and you're there every day, and I appreciate being there every day, but I also like my downtime.
Well, you don't have a lot of it because you're writing about Domantas Sabonis helping Lithuania as it is now. You keep finding stuff to write about as it pertains to our Kings. I thought it was pretty cool. There's I think Vivek, I think Vivek did the old handout selfie with Sabonis and
Mike
Brown.
Yeah.
I don't know why they picked the guy with the shortest arm to take the picture. But he's the one who took the picture and managed to get everyone in it. But I thought it was cool. I feel like we've seen Mike Brown everywhere watching his players this offseason.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Mike Brown has such an infectious personality. I think people are just going to love him. And he needs to be around the players. He needs to be, like, hopefully everyone's got their playbook and they're starting to learn his system and all that stuff while they're either playing or they're back here in Sacramento or they're wherever they're working out, because some players aren't back yet. But it's good to see him. It's good to see the smile. And, it's also... He was there for Sasha Vesenkov, who we're not sure how to say it. And then the Eurobasket guys keep messing with us too. Like they say it totally different. But, it's good to see him over there where he's actually doing a little bit of scouting, a little bit of maybe recruitment for next season. And Sasha's just had like a tremendous Eurobasket before Bulgaria was eliminated. But he's second in Eurobasket in scoring, averaging almost 27 and 12 a game. Yeah, he's just been really good. So, yeah, I think it is good to see Mike Brown, like, where's Waldo? Like, where's Mike Brown this week? But that's all going to end in a couple of days. He'll be here in Sacramento if he isn't already, and he'll be hitting it hard because his players are already rolling in.
This might be a silly question, but I'll ask it anyway. Is it just like a contract thing as to why Sasha has to be there all year? Like what stops the Kings and Sasha in December from saying, I want to come over now. Like let's make the buyout happen. Let's make it happen. Like what are the rules to keep that from happening?
Yeah, there's an overall governing body that you try to stay in good like standing with. And his contract has a very specific out, like a time, and it's already passed. So they had until, I think it was, July 12th stands out to me. That might have been the time. And once it happens, it's over. You can't really do anything to get him over here. And that was his decision. Like, I think it's going to be very tough to get him over here either way. I don't think, like, next year, the year after, like, he's 27 now, but let's be honest. Like he's a star over there. He's a star in Bulgaria, but also in Greece and in EuroLeague play. He could win some MVP titles and stuff over there, and he's a big name guy, and he'll get all that comes with that. Like he'll get television or like marketing deals and all that stuff. He's definitely a player that could have a really big name in Europe for a while. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't make very much money over there. He only makes about 900,000 euros a year. But I expect them to pay him and try to bump that up to keep him over there long term. And then we'll see what the Kings come in with. If they would have came in with like a $4 million offer this year, I think he probably would have taken it. But like, does he really want to come here and back up Keegan Murray? Because that's basically what you're asking. And compete for minutes with Trey Lyles and Chimezie Metu. And I don't think so.
At the very least, the Kings' name was mentioned in a sports SI report about Jordan Clarkson and teams that have inquired with the Utah Jazz about their garage sale that is going on. And Jordan Clarkson was a name that was referenced, and the Kings were referenced as a team that called them. One, do you know anything about that? And two, how do you see that working? Should Sacramento actually be pursuing Jordan Clarkson? How would that work in your head?
First of all, I don't know when that report, like when did the Kings talk to them? That's always going to be the question. And then again, you're dealing with Danny Ainge here, who loves to negotiate everything through the press. I do believe that the Kings at one point called on him, but I also believe that was before the Rudy Gobert trade. So I haven't chased it, and really lined everything up. But I'm going to guess that when they signed Malik Monk and traded for Kevin Herter, it ended their chase of why am I drawing a blank? Jordan Clarkson. And I think Jordan Clarkson, he's a player that the Kings have been interested in for a long time. Me and Brennan just talked about this on the podcast a few minutes ago, and like the Kings have always, once you find something that works really well, you tend to try to go and chase that again. And I know for Jeff Petrie, it was always trying to find like the next Bobby Jackson, and that's what Jordan Clarkson's like. He's a elite 6-man coming off the bench, just doing whatever you need, and he can light it up like Lou Williams or Jamal Crawford, and those guys are tough to find. And I think the Kings they're kind of pot committed now with Malik Monk, where I believe they're hoping they'll be able to convert him into that same type of player that just no conscience, come in, fire away. Don't say you're sorry. Hit as many shots as possible. Go back to the bench. Bring energy. All that stuff. I think that's what they're going to try to do this year. And at one point, I'm sure that they kick the tires. But it seems like Danny Ainge wants 3 first-round picks for anybody. So that just wasn't in the cards.
So humor me for just a little bit, Ham. Let's just say that they have these talks Sunday night, and it includes. You'd have to give up one of the guards. So I'd say like Terrence Davis, right? Terrence Davis, Alex Lynn, and I forgot the other person they said that.
Trey Lyles.
Make it work. Would you seriously consider, even with Monk here and maybe a log jam at the guard position, we were talking to Jason Jones about this yesterday, and I kind of agree with this. Just get as much talent as you can and bring it in and figure it out and distribute the minutes when you get the talent here. But part of me feels like, man, if that was like a real thing that was going on like right now, you'd have to look into it and take it seriously. Just because with this particular team and this franchise, it's not, you can't have too much talent here. I don't care if you got 6 guards on the squad. Like, distribute the minutes and figure it out. Would you be at least interested in looking at something like that, or is it just a full no-go because you have Monk and Herter here?
Yeah, I mean, it would just really be tough. I just wrote up this morning about, sort of the battle at the shooting guard spot. And I think Kevin Herter will probably start, and I think Malik Monk is going to be like the 6-man. But again, that's my speculation. Like, I haven't had a bunch of conversations right now inside. But like, if you look at sort of when they made the moves, how they made the moves, what it cost them, all that stuff. And then when you look at Davion, you look at De'Aaron playing, roughly 60 minutes at the point guard / shooting guard spots. So that doesn't leave that much time. Just you start shaving minutes off of that shooting guard position, and then next thing you know, you're shaving minutes off the small forward position. I mean, just between between Herter, Davion, and De'Aaron, I mean, I think you're looking about 90 minutes. And you only got 96 minutes in the backcourt. So where are you going to get the extra 20-something minutes or 19 minutes for Monk? So I don't even see Terrence Davis really having a spot. He's going to be in a dogfight for minutes or for a rotational spot. Someone is going to lose out here. So I don't know how you would fit in another guy unless you really just don't believe that either Davion is that good or he's not going to fit what you're trying to do. Like, if you're just looking for more talent, I agree with you. The Kings need more talent, but they need more talent at the small forward position. They need a shot blocking like 5 or a 3-and-D 4 that can block shots. I mean, there are things that they still need desperately, but for right now, I think you're kind of committed to what you have.
Jordan Clarkson wouldn't work in the small forward position.
No, he's 6'4", and he's slight of frame. I don't think. I mean, if you're going to run 3-guard sets the entire game, then sure. But, what is that going to do? I mean, if you can cut, Harrison Barnes down like 12 minutes at the 3, and steal a whole bunch of minutes from that position, I mean, we're already talking about that.
If Herter's at the 3, do you consider that a 3-guard set?
Yeah, because I don't think Herter is a natural three. I mean, he's 6'7", and I think he's not gonna have a lot of difficulty defending the three.
Hmm.
So I think he's gonna play, upwards of 18, 20 minutes a night there at the three. But I would still consider it more of a three guard set than I would anything else. I mean, like when Klay Thompson slides over and plays some three for the Warriors, you consider it a three guard set, and I compare him to Klay. Like again, Herter right now, like poor man Klay Thompson, but they kind of do similar things. Klay's a better defender, better 3-point shooter, pure 3-point shooter. But that's how I see him fitting into this lineup on both ends of the court, as sort of like a solid defender that can hang out and take some pressure off of De'Aaron Fox at times, and then a guy who's going to float around the perimeter and shoot a bunch of threes.
So, James, let me ask you a question, because I think about this often when people talk about so-and-so three-guard lineup, they're too small and all these other things. What exactly are people afraid of when having a guy like Clarkson at 6'4" playing the three? And what I mean by that is, obviously, like if you had Davion Mitchell, if all these guys were 6'1" and you were going up against guys, yeah, that's a little too small. Well, you got a guy like Clarkson, 6'4". Let's just say they're playing Dallas. What about having Jordan Clarkson at the three is like, you can't do that against Dallas? All their people just stand on the perimeter. Like, it's not like, oh man, you got 6'4" Clarkson guarding 6'7", Scottie Pippen. You're gonna throw him onto the post and he's too small for that. That's not the way the game is played anymore. Clarkson can match up with Reggie Bullock or Finney Smith, and they're not even using their height as an advantage. Like, what, in your opinion, what's the issue with having those small lineups? That, like a small-ish lineup. Like I said, 6'4" to 6'7" isn't that big of a difference when they're playing the game the way they are right now.
Yeah, I think you're looking at one aspect of the game, though. Can they defend that position? But can they rebound? Can they keep up with all the other aspects of the game? That I don't think they can. And again, if we're talking about a bench unit there, because Clarkson is typically a bench guy,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're talking 6'1" Davion Mitchell, 6'3" Malik Monk, and 6'4", like, who's going to guard Luka? Somebody's going to have to guard Luka, because I watched Luka shoot right over the top of Davion Mitchell time and time again. And so, yeah, there are certain players that you're going to have to defend, and that's just one team. I mean, what if you're playing the Lakers? We can keep going. There's a lot of teams that, like, it's not just a size issue. It's like Jordan Clarkson isn't known to be a good defender, and neither is Malik Monk. And Davion Mitchell can only do so much in that situation. And I think personally, like, the Kings tried a bunch of small ball lineups and three guard lineups under Luke Walton, and they didn't work at all, and he abandoned it pretty quickly. The reason it didn't work is because they didn't have a passing big man. Rashawn Holmes just didn't. He's not a passer, and he tries, but more often than not, he turned the ball over and just made mistakes, and it wasn't crisp. That's not going to be the case. I think now with Sabonis, on the team, you got a guy who you legitimately can run the ball through and have him orchestrate an entire offense like Jokic does with a bunch of non-point guards out on the court, which he plays with all the time. So, yeah, I think it's interesting. No, you can't have too many good players. I totally agree with that. But I also, you went to De'Aaron Fox and said, hey, can you help us recruit Malik Monk? Like, you better have a role for him once the season starts.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't about just, getting one of his buddies to come hang out with him. You paid him $20 million almost over 2 years. That was because you see a role for him, and same thing with Herter. I mean, you just spent a first-round pick, and you owe him a 4-year, $65 million contract moving forward. Like, he needs minutes. He needs opportunity to play and to do what he does. Bringing in a guy like Clarkson would be fun, but I think it also upset, a very delicate balance that is, an NBA rotation.
Is the depth good enough for this on this roster right now? Kenny talking about acquiring, more talent or as many good players as you can. Is depth an issue?
I don't think depth is an issue right now. This is probably the deepest team that I've covered. in Sacramento. There might have been 1 year where they brought in a bunch of veterans to go along with DeMarcus right there at the end, which didn't work out at all. The whole thing fell off, fell apart under George Karl, I believe.
That's hard.
So yeah, it is. Yeah, exactly. But the difference is, I would say, with this team here is the depth really fits. This feels like the first time that someone's actually like maybe put the edge pieces together of a puzzle first before trying to fill out the rest. And so it feels like he's got the strength of knowing like the basics of what he has, and then he can start swapping, pieces in and out in the middle to see if they'll work or not. I think that this is one of those times where, can you get better players? Sure you can. But the Kings are going to have to give up an asset or two outside of just a salary dump to get a guy like what we're talking about, and like Jordan Clarkson. And like, shouldn't you be looking more at like the long-term solution at the small forward position, or again like a 3-and-D stretch 4 that can block shots and stuff like that? Like there are types of players that would also go along with what they're doing right now that I think would be more of a priority than Jordan Clarkson.
Where do you get those players from?
Well, I mean, they tried to go to Bulgaria to get one of them. Just like a guy that can come in and fill stuff the stat sheet. But I don't know. The small forward position has been an issue in Sacramento for like close to a decade, where they just can't seem to find like the permanent solution. The only one that was a permanent solution was really Rudy Gay that I can remember, and then it's just, Harrison Barnes is there for now, but you're starting to run into that contract issue. So you got to look everywhere. And, I think a lot of teams do a good job of using the G League and developing some of these types of players. But the Kings just haven't. They haven't been able to do that. And so I would like to see them develop, like we look at Keon Ellis, and Keon Ellis, again, 6'4". Maybe he could play a little bit of 3, but, like he needs to find out what leg day is before he really does that. He's a guy who's not really built to take on a 6'8", 220-pound small forward running at him. But I would like to see the small forward version of that, like being developed. Guys like Wenyen Gabriel that they've had in the past, or Troy Williams, and guys that you can try to bring along, and if they make it, they make it. If they don't, that you try something else. It's not without trying. They drafted Robert Woodard, they drafted Jemias Ramsey. It just hasn't worked out. You just got to do a better job of finding the guys that you can develop at the G League level to fill in these low level roster spots, that you don't have to spend a bunch of money on, because eventually you're gonna have to pay all of these guys.
Who's starting at 3 for the Kings next year? Not
this year,
in a month, but I'm talking about next year.
Well, that's
Kevin
like, maybe. I don't know. I mean, it's not even like reading tea leaves. You're just looking at like, that's a huge question. You need to come up with an answer. And I know it's not going to be easy, because they don't have a bunch of draft capital to work with. They could do a draft day deal where they select a player and then trade him after the draft. But again, like, can you find a spot? Can you find a player with your with whatever pick you have? And if the Kings are as good as people are hoping they are going to be, you're looking at the 15th, the 16th, 17th pick. That's not really a great spot to find a starting level small forward. And even still, it's going to be a super young player. So, yeah, you got to start playing the chessboard a little bit stronger. You got to start looking 3 moves ahead, and I'm sure they're working on it, and they have been working on it, but it's still going to be a question going into the season, and especially going into like the trade deadline.
I'm definitely, when I say this, not trying to minimize Harrison Barnes at all, because I don't think you'd be able to. It's just easily to get somebody that brings his production on the offensive side of the ball. But if they're doing, like you just mentioned, doing their job and doing their due diligence and going through it right now, you got plenty of time to find somebody. You got a draft. You possibly have $30 million or so in free agent money to either work that towards a trade or to a free agent to find somebody like what was my man's name? Daniel House. Like that's the type of guy like people keep talking about. That realistically, you're talking about. Would you want Chris Middleton for sure? But you gotta have a first round draft pick, and a deep draft, and like $30 million to go find somebody like Daniel House if need be. Yeah, they could do that.
There's a big difference between Chris Middleton and Daniel House.
There's a big difference between Harrison Barnes and Daniel House. Like I understand
Yeah.
that. I'm just saying, like you can go find a Daniel House somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at where Monty came from, the Houston Rockets, they always had a pipeline. They did a good job of developing specific types of players. Like, I think we've had this discussion before. Like, I think for a lot of teams, they just mismanaged the G League, like, really badly. So, like, if you're going to go out there and find guys that are fun to watch or have a bunch of potential, but, like, they're like 2 years away from 2 years away, like, why waste your time? Like, as opposed to going and finding six Keon Ellises that play different positions, and they're very strictly like a 3-and-D wing. That's all I need you to do is play defense and hit a 3-point shot. I don't want you working on a bunch of dribbling. You can get better on your own time at dribbling, but I want you to do these basic things and just create that style of player, because there's a lot of players like that coming out of the college game. It's just nobody drafts them because they don't see an upside, and instead of seeing who they are and just making them better at what they do, they try to take guys who are super athletes and say, okay, well, if it doesn't work out for him to be like a really good player that, starts a good starter down the road, well, we'll convert him into this 3-and-D style player. And that never works. It never happens. They never accept the role. They always think that they're still that top tier guy, and as opposed to taking guys who are really good at college at doing the specific things that we're talking about. And I just think that that's one of the short-sighted looks of the NBA. They really don't like bring along the right style of player. Like, go find a guy like Neemias Queta. Perfect example. He's got some passing skills. You know he does. You've seen his soft touch. But realistically, he's a huge rebounder and a big-time shot blocker, a rim protector that you don't have. Like, develop that skill, and then along the way, develop, his post game, develop his high post game, add the passing ability and stuff like that, and you might have something, as opposed to, again, there's a bunch of guys that they've had down there that just, they have no shot of ever making it to the league, and you just keep like spending time giving these guys minutes who aren't going to develop because they don't have like two specific skills that they're working on to make them really good role players at the NBA level.
I'm sorry, you're both wrong. The correct answer was Harrison Barnes. Harrison Barnes.
Harrison Barnes, everybody. Harrison Barnes.
We'll come back more with James Ham here on Sacramento Sports Leader ESPN 1320. Clear. You watching soccer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What time is that game on tonight?
I think it's 7.
5? Oh, is it?
No, it might be 5. You're right. They're in Orlando. It might be 5.
Yeah, they're in Orlando. So, yeah, and that whole mess. What in the world were they thinking?
Oh.
I mean, but what are they going to do? What are they going to do about it? Nothing.
Nah.
Certainly.
They made a statement.
Yeah, it's trash. I mean, I think that the only thing they could do is like literally just red card their coach to open the game and just send him just like out. Like, that's the only kind of statement you could make, but you can't. I mean, like, a player wasn't involved,
Right.
so yeah, it's wild. Aldrin J, my team is Man U because my son is a Man U fan, and that's because his coach was a Man U. Yes, I am a Man U fan, but my son's coach growing up is a Man U fan, and so I just like hang out with and watch soccer with him. But we watch all kinds of Premier League predictable. Like, not predictable.
Tyler, my gosh, geez, Tyler's the mob boss.
Yeah, that's a little egregious there, Tyler.
Tyler coming for you.
Yeah.
Good thing Tyler's on Team D'Lo and KC. I ain't gonna make him mad.
See, I can't pull for City because my cousin's husband is a big City fan, and him and my son have gone at it forever about, City versus Man U. So, yeah.
Securing the Bagley. I hope I'm reading this right, because if I am, you're wrong. Like, I'd do that in a heartbeat. I think somebody proposed, like, unprotected 2023 pick and Harrison for Moody. Hell yeah.
Oh, no
Hell
way.
yeah. You wouldn't do it?
Not unless Moody's better than he is today.
Moody is just fine.
He's okay. I mean, but we haven't seen him really play.
I'd do that yeah, I'd do that.
I'll tell you what I would have done. I would have just drafted Moody at number 9.
No, there's that too.
I mean, that's the problem.
Gone? No, he wasn't already gone.
Who's that?
He might have already been gone because it was part of the 2 picks. It was Kuminga.
Yeah, they got Moody at like 15. Yeah.
Well, I thought they had 2 top 10 picks.
No. Moody fell.
Orlando
Moody fell on draft night.
Picks. That's what it was.
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah. I like Moody, and the Kings should have planned for this situation.
So you hate Davion, is what you're saying?
No,
James hates Davion Mitchell.
No, but at the time that you drafted Davion, you already had 2 point guards.
Yeah,
that was my issue. And at 6'1",
including the biggest point guard that ever lived.
Yeah, that's that too.
Yeah, at 6'1", he like Davion really can't play multiple positions. He is what he is.
Yeah, great
Rory
part and Ragnar. That's a great part.
Wagner went to pick before the Kings.
That's what we always talk
Should've
about.
Drafted Franz.
We always say that they should have drafted Franz.
Now, Kenny.
Yeah.
Franz is a good ball player too.
See, Zaire Williams is shown some promise, but again, he's showing promise on a team where he's like the 7th dude. So, yeah,
Yeah, that's interesting. I would give Moses Moody for that deal.
I would have gone and like traded my 2 second-round picks and something else to try to move in to like the the early 20s or late teens, and tried to find another guy, like a 6'8" small forward, a defensive guy. Yeah, like Tari Eason's more of a 4 than he is a 3, but like there were some guys specifically in this draft that were intriguing that could have been like decent 3-and-D guys.
I like Zaire too.
Yeah.
What are you looking at? Jesus.
Well, I mean, isn't Herb Jones the one that you really should have got?
He's good. I really like him. We're coming back. We are solving all of the Kings' problems here on ESPN 1320 today. Did a little redrafting, did a little work here during the commercial break. You can only catch that, though, on twitch.tv/ESPN1320, youtube.com/ESPN1320. Trade proposals being thrown out, agrees, disagrees. It's always fun there during the commercial break when King scenarios come up. You mentioned a few minutes ago, James, this is the deepest team that you've covered in your time with the Sacramento Kings. What's their strongest position?
It's tough. I mean, I think they're strong at point guard. I think they're strong at the 2. I think they're really strong at the 5. Yeah, I don't know. I think overall, like, if you were to say, like, what are the strong suits of the team overall, I think it's that they have, 2 or 3 players at every position that are actually either NBA players or really close to it, like legitimate NBA players. And then on top of that, I think their rebounding is improved. I think they're a better 3-point shooting team. I think they can be a great 3-point shooting team as opposed to the bad 3-point shooting team they were last year. But yeah.
And you know what, James? I talk about this a little bit with like the 49ers and everything, and I'll give Monty a little credit, a lot of credit for this actually. You can't change everything, right? In like one off season or even two. And when he got the job, it was a really imbalanced roster and it was a weak roster. Then you look at 2 years later. I mean, he's got a team that looks like they can possibly get into the play-in or the playoffs. And yeah, they need a three. Yeah, they got too many centers or too many guards. But look what he has done. He was able to flip one of those guards for a center that works. He was able to draft possibly a starting power forward. He was able to add to this roster with wing depth and things of that nature. Would we have loved for him to get the small forward, the correct shooting guard, the correct four all in one offseason? Absolutely. But sometimes these things take a season or two to build it all together, right?
Yeah, I mean, if I were to critique Monty on, because I mean, right now we're turning his 2 years. He just like, as an employee of the Kings, I don't even think we're there yet. Because you got to remember he started so late after the bubble that, like, it was in September that he was hired. So he's only been on the job 2 full years. The only thing that I would say is that first off season, he didn't address any of the needs.
Right.
He didn't address anything. The only thing he did was find Tyrese Halliburton in the draft, and even that, you know, like he was a 12th pick in the draft. Like Halliburton is outplayed and is much better than you would have expected him to be. So, you know, like that first roster, he took such a cautious approach in, and then, you know, when we got to the trade deadline, he made like 3 savvy moves. Remember, he traded for Harkless. He traded for
Terrence Davis.
Yeah, oh yeah, Terrence Davis, and then there's one more. Yeah.
I can't remember who it was either, but it was
Yeah.
It must not have been that
Alex
sad.
Lynn. Wasn't it Alex Lynn?
No, it wasn't Alex Lynn.
Oh yeah, he signed Alex Lynn. And then
Yeah,
he traded,
no.
Oh, DeLon Wright, that's who it was.
Oh, DeLon Wright. Yeah. So
The Forgotten King.
DeLon Wright. Actually,
Yeah.
that's the one where like he got to. I thought that those were like 3 really savvy moves that showed me that he had promise as a GM, but it still left me with like, okay, you're banking on the same core, and if the core isn't good enough, it doesn't matter what, you know, tertiary players you bring in, those you know, those role players you bring in, if your core is not strong enough, if you can't find the corner pieces for your puzzle, you don't really know where it ends. And so that's what it came down to. Like, I just think that he didn't have like a strong enough base. And when we get to it right now, you look, and I think you can pretty much say that for the next like 4 years, well, you can say for the next 2 years, you've got Fox at the point guard, you've got Herter at the 2, you've got Keegan Murray at the 4, and you've got Sabonis at the 5. You know that you have 4 of your 5 starters, and then on top of that, you know you got your 6-man and Davion or Monk. I mean, you know a lot more than what you did a couple of like 2 years ago. That team, they just like rolled out 15 dudes and threw them out there on the court. I mean, 8 of those guys, what do we say, 7 or 8 are no longer in the league right now from the opening night roster 2 years ago. That many. So
Rory brings up a good point. We are forgetting the move to get Chris Silva.
Chris Silva.
It was clutch.
Yeah.
It was clutch.
Yeah.
I remember we thought that the Kings addressed their toughness issues with Terrence Davis and Mo Harkless and DeLon Wright, and all we did was make poor Mo Harkless's life miserable for the next year.
Yeah, and I mean,
now aren't we, guys?
even that though, if you think about it, if Monty would have just kept DeLon Wright, used his number 9 pick on a small forward, not traded for Tristan Thompson, but again, it was situational. Like I know exactly what he was doing. He was worried he's going into free agency, and they did not think they'd be able to sign Rashawn Holmes, and they weren't sure that they were going to be able to talk Alex Len into coming back. And so they got themselves in a situation where all they had was Marvin Bagley on the roster. They could play the 4 or the 5 going into draft night, and that's why they made those trades. That's why he made that trade. But still, if he would have just kept Alon Wright as your backup point guard, and then kind of rolled the dice in the draft on a small forward, we would probably be thinking about this team a little bit differently right now.
Yeah, let's see, and I hear a lot of people say that all the time. I hear you talk about Jeff Petrie. What was it? He drafted Thomas Robinson instead of Lillard because he couldn't. He wasn't. I'm not going to have a power forward, so I need to do that. And I always or something of that nature. And
he'd gone to the Maloofs and asked him if he could re-sign Jason Thompson, and they wouldn't guarantee him that they would have enough money. That's what it was.
Yeah, so little stuff like that. It's like, I don't know. I just feel like I'm not basing my number 9 pick in the draft on whether or not I'm gonna be able to have Alex Len back or not. You know what I mean? Like I would have just number 9. I'm not any good. I need to go get the best player that I think I can, whether it's a small forward or whatever. I'm not saying because I don't know, I got to make this trade because I don't know if I'm gonna have Alex Len back or not. Man, if you don't keep the line right and like go get, like I said, no disrespect to Alex Len or TT or anything like that, but you can find those guys off the scrap heap. Like you can go if you get to July 15th and you don't have one of those guys covered, you go find a TT. Like you're gonna find these guys anywhere. If DeLon Wright, which I agree with you, was a big part of what they're doing, yeah, that's a knock on Monty because I would have just kept him and would have drafted a small forward and would have figured out the backup center position later.
Yeah, it wasn't the backup though. That was a problem. It was that they also didn't have Holmes under contract, and they did not believe they were getting Holmes back. Like they didn't think that they were going to get him for, was it the early bird? They did not think he was going to sign for that, and then he did, and then they had 2 big men all of a sudden, and you'd already, guaranteed that you would make that deal. That deal, at the end of the day, is that really earth shattering? It's not. Did you waste Alon Wright? Sure. Tristan Thompson just, he's not really an NBA player at this point. But at the same time, you can see the idea behind it. They were in trouble at the position, at the center position, and didn't know that they'd have anybody. And, again, they went out and they tried days before, the day before, they tried to trade Buddy Hield for Kyle Kuzma and Montrezl Harrell, right? And so then they would have addressed the situation. When that deal fell through, it was like, okay, we got to move quickly to do something else because we might not have a center going into this season or going into draft night. And the last thing you want to do again is reach for Thomas Robinson. They believe Davion Mitchell is the best player available. And I think they still believe that Davion Mitchell is the best player available. And to date, you can make the argument that Davion is as good or better than, guys that people are talking about, Moses Moody or Zaire Williams. We don't know how they'll end up throughout their careers, but for right now, he's a top 7-8 rotational player on your team. He is going to play 25 minutes a night and be on the court all the time. So at least you found a ball player, as opposed to taking a swing and a miss. Even, what was it? Keon Johnson was the guy that was slated to go around number 9, and he fell all the way to 21, and he barely played at all in his rookie season.
Right.
So yeah, you just never know.
Why were they so unsure about Harrison? Why did they think Harrison was going to get so much more? Not Harrison. I'm sorry, Rashawn. Why do you think they were so unsure about the early bird rights deal for Rashawn Holmes?
Because his agent was asking for $18 million a year. That's what he wanted. He wanted at 18 to 20 million. He wanted a 4-year, $80 million contract for his player, and ended up getting half of that. And then you remember the whole fudging of the numbers there. So it ended up being a 4-year 47, not a 4-year 55 like he promoted, and he told everybody it was a 4-year 55. And people are like, oh, well, you should have known the early bird was there. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of ways to clear out cap space before you actually sign a contract. So there was other ways in which the Kings could have retained Rashawn Holmes. But, it's kind of, again, it's kind of like what we saw with Dante DiVincenzo this offseason. Kind of, the same thing where you got to a point where you didn't know if you were going to be able to resign him or not. And then the Kings just said, look, we're not going to do the qualifying offer and let him walk.
Well, I mean, it feel like with Dante, they knew the market. They're like, well, why were we going to extend this qualifying offer for? You ain't even going to get it. You can't get this somewhere else.
No, I think he could have got more money somewhere else, but when the Warriors came calling with a legitimate job to go and play on a championship team, that was too much for him to. I mean, he's young. What's he? 25?
Well, that's what I mean. Like, is Dante really at the point in his career where he's like, I'm gonna go play with the Warriors? Like, he needs a.
Yeah, he could have used a big payday.
Job. Like, he needs to. I mean, not that, and he has a role. I don't mean that he doesn't have a role with Golden State, but if he had he has a role as a role player. I don't think he's going to be able to establish himself much there, and he's going to be very much compared to Gary Payton.
Yeah.
Second.
No, that's true. He'll play big minutes though, and he's more versatile than a lot of players. So I think it's a good spot for him to land. I
think it's a great spot for him to land. I just wonder, like, can he build the next step of his career off of this run with Golden State, or does he just wind up being with Golden State for a long time? Maybe he becomes the third Splash Brother. I don't know.
Well, if he's there for 2 years, then if he's there for 2 years, then he can get the same thing Rashawn got, where he can get the early bird at 2 years, and he can sign. It'll probably be at that point, because the salary cap's going up so much. That'll be a 4-year, $50 million contract. So maybe that is a place that he lands and stays long term, because the guys around him can't play forever. Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, they can't play forever. And he's going to play a lot during the regular season, because Klay is not going to play 35 minutes a game, for 82 games. There's no way. So he'll get a lot of time.
Yeah. Hey, James, while we got you here, man, super, super big picture NBA question. Now, the rumors that came out earlier today, they're not verified. It's not like, the NBA is going to announce expansion on September 30th. That's not happening. But I do believe that it's going to happen eventually. Las Vegas and Seattle. You think expansion happens with the NBA? Are they in a spot right now financially and talent-wise where it's time to, move forward with expansion? And 2 teams at that, by the way?
Yeah, I've always thought that, like, look, I didn't like the way that Seattle handled their business when they tried to steal the Kings, and I thought that their fan base did a lot of things wrong. But at the same time, like...
Oh, yes. Make them rock.
That's a great city. It's a great place, and basketball should be there. And they lost their team because city council, like, wouldn't get on board. And, they built an arena they built a stadium for... they helped build the Safeco, and then they helped the Seahawks build out their football stadium as well. And then when it came to the NBA, they said, sorry, we're out of money. We're not going to do it again. And so, they made their bed, and unfortunately the fans paid the price. I would love to see it. I don't like Vegas as a potential NBA city, just like I didn't like it as a potential NFL city or a potential baseball city. There's too many things that go on in Vegas that need to stay in Vegas. And, like, people can say, well, it's worked out for the Raiders. It's like, has it though? Like, how many of their players have gotten in trouble while they're there? The Henry Ruggs situation is horrible. But, like, those are situations that, like, I'm not going to say they happen all the time in Vegas, but things happen in Vegas. Like, it's a city where it's known as, just one continuous party. There's always somewhere to go. And so I'm not someone who, like, loves Vegas as a potential landing spot for another franchise, but I think the league should expand, and you're going to be able to charge, like, the expansion fee it's going to be $2 billion per team. So the league can take in $4 billion and redistribute to the rest of the other teams, and that will take care of some of the cost of what happens in the television deal, because splitting it 32 ways as opposed to 30, that's a big hit for the teams. So if you can offset that with a monstrous like build fee, an expansion fee, which even you got to remember, like when they tried to steal the Kings in 2013, that was just buying a team for like $565 million valuation or something like that, and then they would have had to pay like a $200 million like relocation fee. But the cost of franchises has gone up so much that you have to pay like the going rate for an NBA franchise in order to get in the door now, and that means you're gonna have to pay $2 billion, and that's a lot of money they can offset. And so, like, it might be time, and I think it's far enough past David Stern being gone that you can actually do something with Seattle, because a lot of that was just like the way they treated him afterwards, like really stuck in the league office.
Vegas is a great spot. Seattle should get one too, though.
Well, I certainly hate to side with Kenny Caraway after the headache he's given me today, but I wonder if that had all worked and Seattle had gotten the Kings, would Belo and JC with James Spam in Seattle be saying, Sacramento really should get a team. This is a really good city. They deserve a team. Like, would they be doing that the way that some people do it here with Seattle?
Nope.
I don't want to go all Kenny Caraway and Seattle can kiss my ass, but I really don't care if Seattle gets a team or not. I'm with him in this. I'm against him in the sense. Put one in Vegas. I don't think I understand. Like, I think every point that you made about Vegas is perfectly valid, but I also think when you're young and rich, that could happen in Tulsa. That could happen anywhere. You got money, you can get yourself into trouble. You don't have money, you can get yourself into trouble. If you want to get into trouble, you can. Hell, didn't Marshawn Lynch get in trouble in Vegas? You don't play for the Raiders.
Yeah.
I can't remember where Marshawn Lynch got. I feel like it was Vegas, but like he don't play for them. I mean, obviously the Henry Ruggs deal it's awful. It's awful, but I'm not going to pin that on him being in Las Vegas or the Raiders being in Las Vegas. But I think there is a fair question as to whether Vegas as a it's been masterful for the WNBA. It's been great for the NHL. I think it's still too early to know what it means for the Raiders. And we'll find that out over the coming years. I know the All-Star game hasn't returned. I know
that ain't happening. That ain't happening.
We're not doing that again. I don't know. We'll see. We're gonna go watch. The Republic. We're not gonna see you until Friday. So who you got tomorrow? Rams or Bills tomorrow?
I'm gonna go Bills.
I like that.
Okay.
I like that.
All right.
Yeah. I like him. I think we took their young running back in fantasy. He's deep on our bench. Yeah.
Well, tonight, we're all going Republic.
That's it.
The Republic about to smash them boys. Shout out to Connor and the whole crew. They about to smash little sneaky Orlando.
Sneaky Orlando.
I'm going to watch soccer, which is a sentence I didn't think I would utter here. So, go Republic.